Good afternoon, everyone. Since the IAS office is in Geneva, I will start on time. Welcome, everyone, to the IAS members who are present here in Montreal and also those who are joining us virtually or on YouTube. I'd, of course, like to take a moment to recognize that we are gathering in Hohage on the unceded territory of the Ghanaian Gahaga, or the Mohawk Nation, and we, the conference organizers, recognize the Ghanaian Gihaga peoples as custodians of the lands and water on which we gather. Now, if you can see, the three of us here are all women. The incoming president is also a woman, so we're going to take some time during this members' meeting to incorporate women's leadership in the HIV response session, and with a presentation from one of our members. With that, we have quite a bit of a business agenda to get through, so I'm going to introduce, of course, our Executive Director, Birgit Poniatowski, to run through the business matters of IAS.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Radka. Thank you, Adiba, and also from me, a big welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us here. What I'll do is I'll give you a quick update of what's been happening at the IAS Secretariat over the last year. I won't take too much of your time because then the real hard business comes when Jen is talking to you in a few minutes. So, you may have noticed the IAS presents itself with a new visual identity, and this whole process of reviewing our logo and the way we present ourselves is now pretty much finished, and I hope you've visited our new website. You couldn't really get past it at this conference here because we're also showing you the imagery on the slide loops in the session rooms. Now, it wasn't just the visual identity that we thought about. We also thought about how we explain better what the IAS is all about and what the IAS does. So we, and very much with the help and guidance of the IAS Governing Council, have also reviewed our purpose, vision, and mission statements. You'll find these on the website, but I think it's important to say them out as well. So our purpose, as you all know, and I hope you'll share, is to galvanize the scientific response, build global solidarity, and enhance human rights for all those living with and affected by HIV. Now, where we want to get to, our vision is a world in which HIV no longer poses a threat to public health and individual well-being. And you'll notice here that we very intentionally added individual well-being in here as well to underline our focus on the person, not just on health, public health globally. Now, our mission, what we do is that we convene leading minds, you all here, to accelerate scientific discovery. We advocate for evidence-based and stigma-free policies, and we educate change makers to ensure the global HIV response follows the science and puts people first. And we do this by uniting the global HIV response because progress happens, and we've seen that time and again when science, policy, and activism come together. Our values are to put people first, to build bridges and collaborate, and to be evidence-based and open-minded. I hope you all share this view of what we all are as the IAS. Now, who are we? We are currently 16,000 members all over the world. A third of our members are based in Africa, followed by almost 30% in North America, 15% in Europe, and 12% in each Asia Pacific and Latin America. Now, when you've been to previous IAS members meetings, We used to have single-digit percentages in Latin America, and it's thanks to the efforts of our governing council members in the region, of the team at the IAS Secretariat, to bring a lot more members in Latin America into our fold as well. So this is a lot of people with whom you can engage in your regions, and I encourage you to make good use of the IAS members area on the website to find your colleagues that are near you. Now, what we do is we convene, we educate, and we advocate. And we do all this to firstly promote science. The AIDS Conference and the IAS Science Conference and the Research for Prevention Conference are obviously an important means to do so, but not the only one. You're all familiar with the Journal of the International AIDS Society, which this year had its highest impact factor ever, and is the second after Lancet HIV in HIV-specific journals. So very proud of that achievement. There are a number of calls for papers out from the journal, so have a look, and if it's in your area of work, please do submit the results of your research. You may also have seen, as another way of us promoting science, we've put the new global scientific strategy for HIV cure out at the end of last year and have promoted that throughout the first half of this year as well. And another way we promote science is, for example, through the Global HIV Vaccine Enterprise, the strategy of which we have just refreshed in light of the changes in the field we have seen over the past couple of years. Implementation science is important. You have told us that time and again. The journal is giving much more space to implementation science now, and we have various other activities in this field, but what I would like to draw your attention to is a webinar we'll be organizing after this conference that pulls together all the good and strong implementation science that we have heard here during the conference to share it with an even wider group. And we'll continue to translate key conference sessions into a number of languages, because we recognize that, English isn't everybody's first or even second language. Now, what we also want to do is we want to support action. And to give you a few examples here, we do this in many different ways, and you find a lot of information on our website, but just to highlight a few. In some instances, we work directly with countries, with ministries of health or with other organizations in country to update guidelines on differentiated service delivery, for example. So this is the work that we've been doing over the past few years. But in another way, we've also, just before this conference, finalized a paper that looked at the structural innovations that we've seen during the COVID-19 response, to examine which of those might work and help us in the HIV response as well. This paper is available on our website if you're interested in that. Some of you may have been at the satellite session my colleagues organized here on good practice models in prison-centered care, another way by which we want to support you all taking action on the ground. Maybe you're interested in differentiated service delivery and may want to watch our explainer videos that are also available on the website. After the conference, between now and the end of the year, the IAS Educational Fund will again take key science from the conference here into different countries to again reach a broader audience, and we're currently planning on being in Chile, Tanzania, Indonesia, and Latvia between now and December. Moving on, the third area of our work is, of course, empowering people. Empowering the change makers in science and policy and advocacy in the community to do their work even better and even better together. And here too, And once again, coming back to the new website, you may have gathered that we're quite proud of it, which now has a feature where if you're interested in learning through the IAS, you can specify what your area is, what age group, whether you want to be involved for 3 days or for 6 months, and then we help you find your way through the different offerings that we have there for you. Just some examples. We have a mentorship program that some of you may be already be a part of, either as mentor or mentee, which now also has a specific kind of sub-activity on vaccine R&D. There are our always very popular workshops on writing scientific manuscripts, for example, which we do at the conferences, but also online. We have a number of online courses, and the photo you see at the bottom right here, that is of one of the HIV cure research academies that we've been organizing for a number of years for an intensive kind of retreat style training, and that we are really hoping to be able to do in person again this year. Just a few examples. Go to the website and you'll see quite a lot more other options as well. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you. With that, I would like to hand over to Jen Cates, who is the IAS Treasurer. Jen is a Senior Vice President and Director of Global Health and HIV Policy at the Kaiser Family Foundation, and I'm not now going to go through all the other hats that Jen is wearing as well, except for the fact that she has been a member of the Governing Council since 2018 and has been our treasurer since July 2020. Jen, over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. And at this point in the conference, I have a very important job to do, which is, as the treasurer, is to share with you the financial status of the organization, and which is one of our responsibilities as governing council members, to understand that and to weigh in on it. And so we actually are going to be asking you today for your formal approval of our consolidated financial statements. So I'm going to be presenting to you the 2021 audited accounts, as well as associated reports with that, and also to approve the appointment of our auditor for 2022. So any of you who runs an organization or works in an organization knows how important these things are. I should also let you know that our auditor, Alexandra Dupois from KPMG, is here. So if there are any really tough questions, she can probably answer those. And also, we have our finance committee. We're all here, so I'm presenting on behalf of them. Also, everything that I'm presenting is on our website. You can have access to it. But the bottom line I want to leave you with is that the organization is in very good financial health. And that's an important thing at the end of this very difficult couple of years with lots of uncertainty and lots of changes that had to happen on the fly. And so we should all feel good about that for the IAS. So starting with an overview of the consolidated financial statements, we have a surplus of $652,000 US dollars, and we also have our capital is strong at 18 million, and that is a slight increase, which I'll get to. The auditor has given us a very positive report, issued an unqualified opinion. And as we did last year, the Finance Committee's job, we had a small session with the auditor where they confirmed that we have a sound internal control system in place. So now, I'm not going to go over every single number here, but I'm just going to try to walk you through a little bit so you understand the financial activities of the institution. Our total income was about almost 15 million, and that was a little bit less than last year. This is important to know why, because we have the big conference, the AIDS conference, in the even years this year, and on the other years we have the IAS conference and R4P, so they're smaller. And so this really is reflective of that pattern, so that we expect that. On the income side, our membership fees have been pretty stable at about 494,000. Income from conferences, as you see here, again, it's going to be smaller in the odd years than in the even years. Income from governments and public organizations is also lower in these off years or these other years. It was 2.8 million, and that's mostly from the National Institutes of Health in the United States. We also have grants from foundations that were almost 3 million, and that's mostly the Gates Foundation. And then finally, we get corporate grants and sponsorships that amounted to 4.8 million, and the main sponsors are ViiV, MSD, and Gilead. On the expenditure side, our operating expenditures were 14 million, as you see here, and 6 million of that was for the conferences, 1 for future conferences because we always look ahead, and 5 million for our HIV program. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about some of these as well, and 1 million for the Secretariat. Importantly, excluding the conferences, our expenses did increase by about 10% compared to 2020. All in all, this leaves us with an operating surplus of 727,000. There is a negative financial result of about 74,000, but that's exchange rate fluctuations, and that's a normal course of activity. So our programs, you can see here on the HIV programming side, the expense amount of 5.6 million, slightly less than income, so a small deficit, and that was known and planned due to some activities that we had in place. Our main programs that you can see are our education fund, followed by CIPHER, the differentiated service delivery program, and the vaccine enterprise. And then just to show you the Secretariat, similarly, expense and income fairly close, a slight surplus on the operating result. And our balance sheet. Our assets, just for those who follow this, they're mainly cash assets. They're close to 27 million. It's very similar to 2020. Our liabilities have been reduced, and that's mostly due to payables that occurred. And we have several restricted funds that include, for example, our scholarship reserve, which we didn't use in 2021, so this is all planned, so that's stable. And we have a future conferences pre-funding line that I mentioned earlier. So we had spent 1.5 million in 2021 for future conferences, and then you can see the bottom result. These are the conferences. And just, I think it's on the next, yeah, so just importantly, we have these designated reserve funds that are, that's for money, revolving funds, where we're able to sort of focus on the different main conferences and activities that we need to make sure are funded and supported. So these are the different revolving funds here. Okay. Here's some more detail on the conferences from last year, the IAS 2021 conference and the R4P conference. You can see we had a surplus in both cases. Those surpluses go directly into the revolving funds for those individual conferences. For IAS 2021, we had 4,400 fully paying delegates and more than 6,000 participants. And for R4P, we had 1,300 fully paying delegates and more than 2,000 participants. And you might remember the R4P conference included that one-day COVID-19 prevention conference. And actually, I think that's it. That's my quick run-through of the numbers. Again, all of this is available to you, and we also are here to answer questions. But what we are asking for you today is to approve both the 2021 consolidated financial statements and the renewal of KPMG as our auditor for 2022. Thank you. So now we officially motion. Oh, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? The motion passes. Thank you very much. And as I said, if you do have questions, we are here. We are happy to answer them. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jen. As you can see, the IAS is in good programmatic and financial shape, thanks to the hard work of the Secretariat and staff with support from the Governing Council. It is my pleasure now to introduce the IAS Governing Council for the 2022 to 2024. But first of all, let me welcome Sharon Lewin from Australia as the next president. Sharon, do you want to come up? Please come up on stage. and to also welcome Beatriz Greenstein from Brazil as the next president-elect. Beatriz, are you here? Can't see her. She might be busy in a session. Okay. She's on stage in another room. Yeah. That's a shame that there's been this clash. And also that Jen Cates will continue as our treasurer. I would also like you all to join me in welcoming Patrick Bitangumutz Wenzi from Burundi, who is unable to join us, but I'm not sure if Patrick's online. No? Okay. And Brenda Crabtree from Mexico. Brenda? Susan Shumba from Zimbabwe. And Mitchell Warren, who has had to stand in for someone in a session as the person couldn't make it to the session. So Mitchell sends his apologies. They are all the newly elected members of the Governing Council. I also want to congratulate Ishwar Gilada from India. Ishwar. Andrei Klepikov from Ukraine. Andrei. And Cristina Mussini, Italy. And Nitaya Panupak, who will continue with us for a second four-year term. And finally, I'd like to give thanks to Serge Eole from Côte d'Ivoire, who is also unable to be with us here in person, Kaletso Makofani from South Africa, and Adora Adimora from US for their time on the Governing Council. They will be rotating off. And of course, a special thank you to our immediate past president, Anton Pozniak. Please rise. Okay, just to complete the list of Governing Council members who've not yet been mentioned. So we have from Africa, Josephine Nabukenya from Uganda, and Kenneth Ngware, Kenya, who unfortunately fell victim to the visa issue. Andrew Grulich, Australia, and Shuzo Matsushita at the other end from Japan. From Europe, Chloe Orkin, who's been busy in many sessions, so she's probably not here, from the UK, and Bruno Spear from France. From Latin America and the Caribbean, we have Claudia Cortez from Chile. Yeah. Omar Sweat from Argentina. And Monica Thorman from the Dominican Republic. And our three members from the US and Canada, Susan Buckbinder from US, Renata Sanders from US, and Daryl Tan from here in Canada. Okay, so welcome and congratulations to new and old Governing Council members. Now, for the next segment of this IAS meeting, we thought we would incorporate the Women Leadership and IAS session into this program. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker, and Kimberly Green, to the lectern. Kim Green leads PATH's primary healthcare program. Prior to assuming this role, Dr. Green led PATH's global HIV and TB portfolio. She has had nearly 30 years' experience in public health management, policy development, and research, although it doesn't show in her appearance, of course, in her CV and her successes, yes. She's a member of the WHO Global PrEP Coalition and HIV Testing Technical Working Group, is a deputy editor for the JIAS Journal, and is a scientific committee member for the this IAS conference, and also holds the role of clinical associate professor in the University of Washington Global Health Program. She holds a master's degree in international health and development from the George Washington University in DC and a PhD from the London School. Kimberly, over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Adiba. And I have to say, when Prof. Adiba asked me if I would be interested in giving this talk, I was daunted because the topic of women in leadership in the HIV response is so vast. There is so much that has happened in the past few decades that is phenomenal. And also because I am here among some amazing women leaders within this room, within this conference, within the world outside of the walls of this conference, many women who were not able to get visas to come here, who represent the diversity of all that we are as women, who are trans and cisgender women, or who are women identifying or femme identifying, who are women living with HIV, women with disabilities, women of all colors, black, brown, yellow, white, and everything in between, women of many sexualities, gay, bi, queer, straight, and so much more. There is so much in terms of what is happening in the world with women and how they're leading in the HIV response, and it is transformational. It is so much more than when I first started out, and I'll share more about that in a moment. When there were, and I think we need to be honest about this, many more men who are in leadership roles in science, in activism, and so many other spaces. So for me, I can only speak to my thin slice of my experience in women in leadership. And so I'm going to be talking first to ground my talk about how I view leadership in the HIV response and how we can define it. Secondly, I'll share a little bit about me. Third, I'll talk about some of my heroes, people who have inspired me. And then last, I'll talk about the next generation in the HIV response. The future is very bright. So first of all, what is leadership? It's a word we use all the time. And sometimes when we think about leadership, some people might associate it with power or hierarchy or a job title. But I think fundamentally in the work that we do in the HIV response, it's about driving social change and impact. And so there are two definitions that really resonated with me. The first one is that leadership is a process of social influence, which maximizes the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal or positive change. And then related to that, leadership development is a collaborative process where all individuals are potential leaders who can create positive social change. And I think of this dynamic in three parts that are interacting with each other. So the first is the individual, where the individual is developing personal qualities and self-awareness and their own values about how they want to lead. The second is really the group action, people coming together around a common cause and collaborating together, and then individuals and groups together influencing society. And we've seen tremendous positive social change, and of late we've also witnessed some very terrifying change that's occurred, mobilizing even more individuals and more groups to drive forward positive change. And women have very much been at the forefront of these leadership roles. So now, there's so many aspects of leadership when it comes to women in the HIV response, and I'm sure I'm missing many of them. But what I think about are all of the women that are leading support groups, female sex workers, women who inject drugs, women living with HIV, adolescent girls and young women, who are all at the grassroots leading groups around issues in their community to strive for change. And related to that, of course, is activism and advocacy that's happening within families, at the grassroots, all the way to the global stage, and that so many women are leading, including the women who are sitting right here, as well as mentoring. So it's fantastic to see how much IAS is investing in mentoring of all young people who are part of the IAS, but in particular with women. And I really hope that the IAS continues to do that, and we see many more mentorship programs and all over the world and among some of the different groups of women that I've spoke to. And then also the role of women in caregiving and within families, within the community, all of the clinical work, amazing pharmacist leaders that are out there. I mean, I think about some of the pharmacists right now who are agitating to offer PrEP. And many of those are women and are now making sure that PrEP is available through pharmacies, like at Kelsey Ross Pharmacy in Seattle, for example, or the incredible work that's happening in Kenya. But as well as nurses, doctors, and so many others. And then the work that's happening through research from the bench all the way to implementation science, and then, of course, policy shaping. So I want to now just share a little bit about me and how I got involved in HIV. So I know this is very cliche, but it is true. I am no exception. I really got my start in the work that I do because of my mother. She was an immigrant to the United States, so first generation Greek American. She raised me as a single mother, and so while she was working, she made time to be involved in grassroots politics and health advocacy in the US. So in Washington State, for those of you who don't know, in some states in the United States, there's an opportunity to participate in political caucuses, where you can, at the grassroots level, you can debate about policy issues you care about and the candidates that you care about. And so my mom, as a single mom, would bring me along because there was no one else to take care of me, and I would sit in these meetings and I would hear fierce debates around access to safe abortion, around access to family planning, around protecting gay rights, and around equitable health care overall. So this was steeped in my mind as a kid. And so what I took away from that experience was that, first of all, it was not only possible, but essential to fight for positive change. And secondly, that women can have an important voice in advocacy and organizing for that change. So she really showed me that there's so much that you can do if you speak up and speak out. And so that experience as a young person really led to me thinking about what more I could do in health equity. And so I got involved in access to family planning and safe abortion in the United States. And that led me also to really seeing the inequities that were happening in the HIV response. And I was very fortunate to have an opportunity to go to Cambodia, where I supported local NGOs that were offering home-based care and palliative care to primarily women living with HIV, mostly sex workers. And seeing the lack of basic health care and certainly the lack of treatment made me really mad and made me want to figure out what more would be possible to generate resources so that there would be better health care for people living with HIV. That took me back to the United States. I worked with the Global Health Council and worked with someone named Ron McGinnis, who is an amazing human, and Helen Kornman, and with many domestic advocates, including individuals like Jen. And that really led to a push for the Clinton administration to finally invest in the global HIV response. And so we thought we asked for a ton of money. We asked for $150 million. We thought that would be great if the US government could give $150 million to the global HIV response. And the Clinton administration ultimately got $100 million, which we were still very happy about, but which clearly was nothing near what was needed. And now, of course, you can see with the investments in advocacy around PEPFAR how much more contribution has been made to ensure that treatment is available, and so much more is available across the world. And so that experience really led me to think about this confluence between advocacy, implementation, and implementation science or research, and how all of those three are so important in really coming together in order to drive policy change and financing. And so through this experience, through this sort of approach or this lens, I got, of course, pursued a PhD and was able to utilize research to really think about what would be important through that research, what would be important to learn to drive advocacy and change. And so for me, what was really and is really important right now was focusing, first of all, on PrEP. and making sure that there's fair and equitable access to oral PrEP and to new PrEP products. So that's a lot of what I'm focusing on right now, trying to bring together those pieces around advocacy, implementation, and science and research towards additional financing, towards additional access. So in addition to PrEP, a key focus of mine has also been on it's really fantastic that we've invested in HIV. It's amazing what PEPFAR has done. It's amazing what the Global Fund has done. But in the meantime, we've really done a disservice to people living with HIV and affected by HIV by ignoring many of the other health concerns that mean so much to them, and in some cases more to them than the HIV services that are on offer. And so I've been working with a number of allies and colleagues to generate evidence around why we need to have mental health services also available. We need to make sure that NCD services are available, viral hepatitis, which has been largely ignored, as well as STIs, where there's such high morbidity of STIs and such little screening and such little treatment that's available when we know we can do it. We've got the platforms and the resources to do that, as well as really making sure that we're offering comprehensive sexual reproductive health services. And gender-affirming care so that transgender individuals can access hormone testing and prescriptions for hormones and more, as well as harm reduction, which has been in place since the beginning of the pandemic and is an integrative approach, but where we've really failed to invest adequate resources to have impact, including for OAT. So in addition to this area and related to it has been very much focusing on how can we demedicalize services? How can we make sure that communities are able to offer services and that the policies and the regulations support that, so that key populations are able to deliver PrEP to the communities they serve, adolescent girls and young women are able to offer HIV testing, for example, and engage in STI services, and so forth. And related to that then is also this priority in simplifying care, making it easier, making it more accessible. And then for me, that also connects to self-care. We have these great technologies for self-testing, for self-sampling, and also for administering some family planning technologies, and I hope very soon also for PrEP. But I think we need to continue to make sure we drive forward access to these products through advocacy, implementation, and research or evidence generation. And then lastly, really needing that financing, the systems and resources to sustain these efforts. So just briefly sharing some of the things that I'm really passionate about, and I really am so lucky to work with many of you in the room and across the world on. So now I want to focus on heroes. So these are not all, there are so many amazing women who have inspired me and the work that I do, but I just wanted to highlight a few of them because to me they embody those three key areas that I've been talking about, bringing together advocacy, implementation, and research, and generating proof points. So I just want to acknowledge my personal heroes and to say that from them I've really learned how important it is to discover what matters to you in being a part of the HIV response as a woman, and really finding that passion and focusing on what you feel fiercely about. Secondly is the mentorship piece, which is so critical, is finding who inspires you, seeking them out, growing with them, and then giving back to others. Third is finding allies and building networks, constituencies. And this isn't just through a project that you're funded with, but really seeking out people who are like-minded and making connection with them for greater impact. Fourth is taking care of yourself, the art of saying yes, no, and or not yet. And I have to say I'm not very good at that, so I'm still trying to figure that one out. And then lastly, that there's no one route to leadership. There's many paths, and leadership happens at any age. However, with all this learning, with all the progress that we've made, there is a lot yet to be done. There is systemic racism, which influences the way in which women in different parts of the world are able to and can lead. And related to that, colonialism and global health structures. And there was a phenomenal session earlier today which spoke exactly to these issues. There's a tremendous amount of violence against women, and it's increasing, and in particular, sex workers and transgender women are facing a considerate burden of violence. Stigma and discrimination persist in many forms with many populations, and that relates to criminalization. And then the burden of caregiving on women. So many women are expected to be caregivers and are not remunerated for the roles that they play. And then finally, I really need to conclude with the restrictions on reproductive rights, including the access to safe abortion, which is playing out in the United States, and for many of us is something that we had hoped that we would never see, and my fear is that that will influence other countries in access to reproductive health and safe abortion. But with all of these challenges, I still think that the future is bright for women in leadership. And I want to read this quote. It's 10 years old, but it's still so relevant. It was perspectives primarily of women living with HIV around women in leadership. And so E. Tyler Crone says, at the end of the day, when one finds the way, or when women create ways for other women to come together and share our strengths, big change can come about. And you see that, despite the odds, women are making tremendous change and being incredible leaders. And this whole point of agency, I think agency is key. We are agents of change and not just the recipients of services. And so with that, I want to highlight, there's, again, so many, but I just want to highlight 3 of amazing women who are part of the next generation and who are so phenomenal, each in their own way. I think some of you will know 1 or 2 of them, maybe not all 3, but I think soon you will. And with that, I want to give a thank you to my amazing colleagues who inspire me every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing with us your journey into leadership and the lessons learned. I hope you don't mind if there are any questions from the audience or from the Zoom room. I can't really see because of the... No? Okay. Well, thanks once again. Okay, which brings us to the final segment of this IAS members meeting, which is the Mark Weinberg Fellowship Program Awards. With that, I would like to invite Anton Posniak onto the stage. Just very quickly, before Anton describes the Mark Weinberg Fellowship Program, it was created in 2017 by Anton. And many of you will know that Anton has spent the last 14 years on the Governing Council. He was elected in 2008 and remained on the Executive Board and board in the role of Treasurer, and was instrumental in helping IAS come to its current healthy financial position after some rocky years beforehand. He was President-elect from 2016 to 2018, President in 2018 to 2020, and is currently the IAS immediate past president, and has also been instrumental in the inception of the IAS Educational Fund. And before you announce the Mark Wimberg Award, I'm going to present you with a bouquet of flowers for all the years of service on the IAS. Yeah. No, I'll take that from you.
Yeah. Oh, that's magnificent. Thank you very much. I'm blushing now. I don't usually blush, but I am now. So thank you very much, everyone. That's absolutely marvelous. I didn't expect that at all. Right, Mark Weinberg was a professor here in Montreal. He's a wonderful innovator, a magnificent human being who died tragically, but we remember him with the Mark Weinberg Fellowship. Now, what happened? I don't know if Jan van Lunsen's here. Is Jan here? Well, one day, Jan had a meeting, and I went along, and he wondered how we might improve and develop quality of care in Africa. And we had the meeting, and then he and I had this idea that we should give fellowships to up-and-coming researcher clinicians in Africa to become specialists there, and therefore they would then generate research, they would generate links, and they would then become leaders in their field, have departments, get people going, and do all sorts of fantastic things. And we had a marvelous support from Secretariat, and Roseanne started that now, before, and now we have Ricardo, who's been wonderful. So the Secretariat have been fully behind this, and Vive were funding this. So then how did it happen? We got in contact with the people in Europe and in Africa, and we said that an African up-and-coming research scientist should go to another country in Africa to see how things were done there, and then come to Europe to see how things are done there, and get involved in research, get involved in implementation science, get involved in clinical work. And then at the end of that, they would go back to their own institution. This was not ever going to be a brain drain. They had to go back, they had to have guarantee to go back to their own institution and build their careers from there. So that sort of dream became a reality, and we have got lots of fellows now, and we have now appointed this year, if I can, where do I do this now? Maybe I do. Go there. Arrow. Oh, yeah. We now have the 2022 to 2024 Mark Weinberg Fellows. We have Modeste Njuga-Nwambila from the Cameroon, Achel Lila Gansu from Benin, and I'm going to introduce in a second Liliane Jaoud from Guinea-Bissau. Now, the real important thing is we try to get this in some form of equity, so we'd have French-speaking specialists from French-speaking Africa, we'd have Portuguese-speaking, and we'd have English-speaking. So there's always fellows that come from those three areas of Africa, so that we could make sure that the expertise was grown across the continent rather than all coming from one area. So it's unfortunately Modeste and Axel can't be with us today, but Lillian's here, and I'd like to ask her to come up to the stage and receive a certificate for the fellowship. Lillian. And because the other two, the usual issue with the visa and Canada, which we've all know at least one or two or three people that have suffered from this, has been a problem, we have got a short video from Modeste and Achel, and I think hopefully that. Oh. We need the volume turning up.
Je suis très heureuse de faire partie de cette grande famille des fellows et à travers ce programme, j'espère pouvoir apporter un service de pointe, une plus-value dans la prise en charge de l'infection à VIH dans mon pays et apporter également l'expérience vécue à l'extérieur, l'adapter au contexte de mon pays pour pouvoir atteindre les objectifs fixés en matière d'infection à VIH. J'ai hâte que ce projet devienne réalité et je vous remercie.
Hi, my name is Nwambila Njingu, medical doctor currently working in Cameroon. I'm excited to be a Mark Weinberg Fellow. This program offers me the opportunity to build on skills to improve the quality of care offered to persons living with HIV. It also offers me a platform to network with some of the best in HIV care and research. And upon completion of this program, I would have taken a step towards achieving my dream of becoming one of the leading figures in HIV care and research in Cameroon, Africa, and the world at large. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So congratulations to all the fellows, and we're looking forward to working with them. I'd also like to congratulate Kenneth Nguri, who's up from the Governing Council, and he's going to be now take over my role as the new Awards Committee Chair. And I'd also like to thank all of the mentors in all of the countries that actually help and guide these fellows through. So Kenneth's got a big role ahead of him now, which is wonderful. And now, additionally, and it's the last comment I'm going to make, so you might be all pleased about that, the program is now growing and it's going to expand to the Asia-Pacific region, and it's with support from Gilead, and applications will be launched in early 2023, and we really look forward to seeing 3 fellows from Asia, and also Adiba's going to be making sure and steering all that through the pathway, so that I hope that by next year you'll also be able to see 3 fellows from Asia as well as from Africa. With that, I'd like to thank you all very much indeed. It's been a wonderful time.
So, dear members, with that, it brings us to the end of this year's IAS members meeting. Thank you all for coming, but this is not quite the end, because we do have drinks and nibbles outside the room, outside the session room, and this will be your opportunity to meet with your regional council members. Thank you once again for coming.